Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul called every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. A minus 31 free throw discrepancy. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes, but we're not. We're attacking the rim. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So,
what if one of the biggest moments in women's basketball wasn't a triumph, but a setup? A playoff series that looked like a battle between two powerhouse teams has just exploded into what might be the largest officiating scandal in WNBA history. But this isn't just about bad calls. It's about rigged outcomes, leaked audio, betting fraud, and players risking their careers while the system silently burned beneath them. And at the heart of it all, a team that wasn't supposed to win, and a league that allegedly made sure they didn't. It started with some strange whistles. Then came the statistical anomalies. But when a coach pulled out frame-by-frame video evidence and a hot mic caught a referee admitting they knew the outcome before the game even began, the entire basketball world froze. It was supposed to be just another playoff series. The Indiana Fever versus the Las Vegas Aces, a marquee matchup, packed with talent, grit, and everything fans hoped for. Game 1 delivered exactly that. The Fever came out swinging, playing fearless, aggressive basketball. They stunned Vegas with a convincing win, and suddenly, the underdog narrative was alive. But that was the moment things shifted. Game 2 felt different. Calls started going one way. Whistles were late or missing altogether. And then came Game 3, a match that would ignite a firestorm. Indiana players were getting hammered in the paint, bodies flying, wrists slapped, elbows thrown, and not a single whistle in their favor. Vegas, on the other hand, was getting sent to the line over and over again for fouls that barely even made contact. That night, after the final buzzer, Indiana head coach Stephanie White didn't just express frustration, she dropped a bomb. In a post-game press conference that instantly went viral, White didn't mince words. She accused the officiating crew of blatant bias and hinted that there was more to the story than bad refereeing. She wasn't bluffing. The next morning, social media was in flames. Fans started analyzing clips, sharing slow-motion replays, compiling missed calls. And just 24 hours later, the WNBA found itself backed into a corner, forced to launch an emergency internal investigation. What started as a playoff series had morphed into a full-blown scandal. And it was only just beginning. Because once the numbers came out, the conspiracy started to take shape. At first, it felt like coincidence. Maybe a few missed calls. Maybe the refs just had a bad night. But then the stats dropped, and they were undeniable. Across just 3 games, the Indiana Fever had a minus 31 free throw differential. That's not just a bad look, it's a mathematical red flag. Especially for a team that relentlessly attacks the paint and lives at the line. Somehow, Indiana's most aggressive drives were met with silence, while Vegas waltzed to the charity stripe on phantom contact. Analysts ran the numbers. The odds of that kind of disparity happening randomly? Less than 0.001%. It wasn't just suspicious, it was statistically impossible. This wasn't basketball anymore. It was something else. And the most disturbing part? Internal league sources claimed teams had already warned the WNBA about this ref crew. But nobody listened. Then came the moment that blew the story wide open. Yesterday morning, a leaked audio recording surfaced. A referee from the Indiana-Vegas series caught on a hot mic during what they believed was a private conversation. In the clip, now authenticated by 3 independent sources, the official can be heard saying, "We know what needs to happen." Hours before Game 2. Within minutes of its release, the audio went viral. Fans demanded answers, players were stunned, and the league scrambled to respond. The referee in question was immediately suspended, but the damage was already done. This wasn't just about missed calls anymore. This was about intentional manipulation, and the public had proof. What started as suspicion had now become a full-blown scandal with receipts. And Stephanie White wasn't finished yet. Because the next thing she revealed would shake the WNBA to its core. Stephanie White didn't just speak up, she came armed with receipts. In a press conference that felt more like a courtroom cross-examination, White pulled out her tablet and presented frame-by-frame footage of 27 uncalled fouls against Indiana in Game 3 alone. Each clip was time-stamped, rule violations clearly marked. There was no speculation, just cold, visual truth. The most jaw-dropping moment? A slow-motion replay showing Asia Wilson literally shoving Aaliyah Boston to the floor with both hands, and not a single whistle blew. Moments later, Lexi Hull was called for a foul while standing 3 feet away from the nearest player. Reporters were left stunned. One veteran journalist, normally a league loyalist, called it the most damning evidence of referee corruption I've seen in 30 years. But it wasn't just missed calls. Because behind the whistles, real money was moving. Just when it seemed the scandal couldn't get worse, it followed the money. In the days leading up to Games 2 and 3, Vegas sportsbooks noticed something strange. Massive betting shifts. Millions of dollars suddenly flooded in, favoring Vegas, right after Indiana's dominant Game 1 win. One analyst discovered 92% of all prop bets involving free throw differentials leaned heavily toward Vegas just hours before tip-off. Not just suspicious, it screamed insider knowledge. Now, the FBI is officially involved. They've opened a full-scale investigation into potential match fixing, and 3 major sportsbooks have already suspended all WNBA betting indefinitely. This isn't about a bad ref anymore. It's about a rigged system, with real money, real manipulation, and real consequences. And through all of it, one injured player stood tall. Not for herself, but for the truth. While the league crumbled under scandal, Lexi Hull became the face of resilience. Playing through 2 herniated discs, she could barely walk during timeouts. Her teammates had to help her to the bench, but when the whistle blew, she lit up the court, dropping 16 points and tying a Fever playoff record with 8 3-pointers. Doctors said she shouldn't have even traveled. But Hull knew this series wasn't just about winning, it was about exposing a rigged system. And her performance? It became the symbol of a revolution. Lexi Hull's courage sparked a chain reaction. Within hours of her performance going viral, 3 more referees from different crews stepped forward, each with damning claims. They revealed they were pressured to favor marketable teams throughout the entire 2025 season. These weren't just stories. They came armed with emails, text messages, and recorded calls proving systematic bias from the top down. One ref said their playoff assignments depended on understanding which outcomes benefit the league. Another claimed they were threatened with termination after refusing to make predetermined calls in a regular season game. This wasn't isolated. This was coordinated corruption. The WNBA Players Association immediately called an emergency meeting. And insiders say a strike is officially on the table if the league doesn't act. But the rot didn't stop at the referees. Because next, we'd learned Vegas itself was in deeper than anyone imagined. If the referees were the soldiers, Vegas might have been the general. Leaked internal emails from the Aces front office painted a damning picture, executives casually discussing referee relationships and naming specific officials they believed could be counted on. One email explicitly requested that certain referees be assigned to their playoff games because they understand the assignment. The language was coded, but the message was clear, the fix was in. Vegas denied all wrongdoing, but former players began coming forward. One retired all-star revealed a ref once told her, "Stop complaining or it'll get worse," during a playoff game. It wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. These revelations made it clear, this wasn't a single bad decision or a rogue ref. This was a system built to protect its favorites and silence everyone else. But the fans? They weren't staying silent anymore. The league may have tried to brush it off, but the fans made sure the world paid attention. During Game 3, Gainbridge Fieldhouse erupted with a 5-minute chant that shook the arena, "Investigate the refs." Investigate the refs. The game had to be delayed. Cameras panned to furious faces, protest signs, and players visibly shaken, not from the scoreboard, but from the injustice. But it wasn't just fans. NBA stars, past and present, spoke out, demanding accountability, transparency, and a full-scale officiating overhaul. Even celebrities with no ties to basketball joined the outrage, calling it one of the worst sports scandals in years. And then there was the sign, the one that went viral everywhere. held by a young girl courtside. It read, "We deserve fair basketball." Above it, a picture of Lexi Hull grimacing in pain. No corporate spin could erase that moment. The people weren't just upset, they were done being ignored. And behind the scenes, the fallout was just beginning. While fans were flooding timelines and arenas with outrage, another storm was brewing, one that hit the WNBA right where it hurts most, its wallet. Within days of the scandal breaking, two major Fortune 500 sponsors began quietly backing away. Insider reports say they're preparing to pull all funding if the investigation confirms corruption. And they're not alone. Several advertisers have paused campaign renewals, citing concerns over integrity. Season ticket sales for 2026? Frozen. Teams aren't processing payments. Fans are demanding answers before committing a single dollar. And while playoff viewership jumped 40% since the scandal broke, league executives know that's not the kind of spotlight they want. It's not celebration, it's disaster watching. One sports economist estimates the WNBA could lose up to $200 million in revenue if the damage isn't contained. That's not a PR crisis, that's a financial reckoning. What was once the league's most promising growth season has now turned into its most dangerous. And the deeper analysts dug into the games, the more it became clear. The corruption wasn't just visible, it was quantifiable. It's one thing to suspect bias. It's another to prove it with numbers. And the numbers? They're devastating. Independent analysts reviewed footage from the Indiana-Vegas series using advanced statistical models. What they found wasn't random, it was a deliberate pattern. In Game 2, Indiana led by 8 points late in the third quarter. Then, in just 3 minutes, they were called for 6 fouls, killing their momentum. They didn't score again that quarter. In Game 3, every time the Fever pulled within 2 possessions, whistle. And not just once, every single time. 3 separate statisticians calculated the odds of this happening by chance to be less than 0.001%. That's not just rare, it's virtually impossible. This wasn't officiating inconsistency. It was a system working against one team when it mattered most. And that system didn't just shift momentum. It rewrote outcomes. The data was so precise, so undeniable, that even neutral observers had to admit, this looked like game manipulation, engineered in real time. But it wasn't just data being silenced. The coaches themselves were being threatened into silence. While the public unraveled the scandal, those inside the league had seen the signs for months. They were just too afraid to speak. For head coaches have now confirmed they were warned directly by WNBA officials not to criticize referees this season. Not subtly, explicitly. One coach revealed they were fined $50,000 simply for asking why a controversial call wasn't reviewed. Another said they were told, "Push this any further, and you'll be watching games from home." One anonymous coach admitted they've been documenting suspicious officiating all season, over 300 questionable calls stored in a personal folder. But fear of league retaliation kept them silent. Until now. Stephanie White's decision to go public broke the dam. Coaches who once whispered in hallways are now meeting behind closed doors with attorneys. The Coaches Association is preparing legal action, citing suppression of their First Amendment rights and professional retaliation. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It had become about control, censorship, and intimidation, a league more concerned with image than integrity. But if the coaches were gagged, the players? They were getting hurt, literally. Because the scandal didn't just threaten fairness. It endangered lives on the court. This wasn't just a scandal about points and playoffs, it became a matter of player safety. Medical experts reviewing game footage flagged at least 15 dangerous, uncalled flagrant fouls, hits that could have caused serious injury. Aaliyah Boston was evaluated for a concussion after taking an elbow to the head, no whistle. Another Fever player needed rib x-rays after being slammed into the scorer's table, again, no call. Even worse? The league's own concussion protocols weren't activated, because the officials never acknowledged the fouls. The WNBA didn't just fail its players, it endangered them. What started as a domestic controversy has now sent shockwaves across international borders, and the WNBA's reputation is unraveling worldwide. leaders from major overseas basketball federations, including FIBA and top European leagues, have expressed serious concerns about the integrity of American women's basketball. One European League executive said they are reconsidering partnerships with the WNBA until transparency is restored. That's not just diplomatic talk, it's a red flag for global trust. International players, once eager to join the WNBA, are now rethinking their futures. Agents report that several top talents from Australia, Spain, France, and Turkey are pausing contract talks, worried they'll face biased officiating if they don't land on a league-favored team. Even more damaging, marketing deals built on international expansion, broadcast partnerships, merchandise sales, and talent development programs are now at risk of collapse. The WNBA's dream of becoming a global force in women's sports was just within reach. But this scandal is threatening to push that dream off a cliff. One executive from a major global sponsor summed it up best: "We can't sell fairness and empowerment abroad while the system at home is clearly broken." This isn't just bad press, this is decades of credibility going up in smoke. And as the WNBA's image burns overseas, more secrets are emerging from within. Scandals often feel like sudden explosions, but this one? It was a slow burn, carefully constructed over time. Sources inside the league have revealed that the referee assignments for the Indiana-Vegas playoff series were made months in advance. Not just early, strategically early, aligned with matchups that only might happen. And guess what? The same officiating crew that now sits at the heart of this scandal? They worked 8 regular season games involving Vegas. Vegas won all 8. Each one with a suspiciously high free throw advantage. Independent analysts ran the numbers. That crew called 73% more fouls against Vegas opponents than the league average. A pattern so blatant, it should have triggered an automatic internal review. But somehow, it never did. Insiders now say those refs were quietly favored by league supervisors, not for fairness or skill, but for being team players who could manage outcomes without making waves. The corruption wasn't an accident. It was choreographed. This wasn't about a bad night or a botched call. This was about months of silent manipulation designed to elevate certain teams and bury others. And the people who tried to play it fair? They were punished, silenced, or pushed out altogether. But now, the people who were forced to stay quiet, they're stepping up to tell the truth. And the next thing they revealed? It exposed everything about how the league really works.